This is the C Word Podcast. Everything talked about in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only, and is not financial advice. You should always seek professional financial advice. Now, onto the podcast.
So do you know what? Do you know what's, about a week before this was going to happen, like today, I was thinking to myself, like, this has been a pretty quiet month so far. And then Trump...
Honestly,
quiet. What rocks up with his tariffs, his wild idea about tariffs.
This is not financial advice.
Yeah, massively. And I have never seen market turmoil like what we saw. Like, just
chaos.
I'm not even I'm not even that old, right? But I didn't think I'd ever see something like this in my lifetime. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the fourth once in a lifetime crash in our lifetime.
I think I'd never seen my crypto portfolio look so small. It was just a sad state of affairs, and I'm in a lucky scenario because I sort of don't need this money. I felt really sorry for the people that like rely on this shit. They need that money. That's their, not a great idea, but it is their like end game, you know, their thing that they're banking on to sort of live the rest of their life, you know, and they put everything into crypto. And then that happens, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, what do you do in that scenario? What do you do in that scenario? A lot of these people voted for Trump.
Hodl. That's all you can do.
That's all they can do. Hodl, right? And Mr. X over here, I'd love to know what happened on your side, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit rough, only because I was actually on holiday in Barcelona when this all happened. So coming back and seeing my clients' portfolios down like 10-15% is beyond chaos. So yeah.
How were they feeling about it?
Loved it.
Yeah, no one loves it, and no one actually wants to buy the dip either.
I think that's interesting.
I think that's what's also horrible.
I wouldn't expect that.
Yeah, same. Because I was wondering why. Because I was telling everyone to buy the dip.
Yeah,
not financial advice.
Yeah. I think
this is not financial advice.
Some people did buy the dip, though, right?
Yeah, some people did.
Because Trump got everyone in a room that bought the dip and was like, "This guy made 300 billion yesterday."
I think a lot of institutions definitely bought the dip, but in terms of like private retail investors, I think it's also quite difficult, and that's because like. In wealth management, a lot of people actually think that it's super ultra high net worth individuals, and the bulk of the time it's mainly like Mrs. Miggins living in Devon who's worked her whole life accruing wealth.
Yeah.
She's got 600 grand in her SIP. So I don't want to buy the dip. She doesn't want to buy the dip. So yeah.
You probably shouldn't say your own name if we're going to be anonymous.
Oh, sorry, I'm Mr. X.
Don't worry. I will edit this out.
Please. It was absolute chaos. So basically, my first day. I literally just got about 40 emails, and I'm just wondering why. Next thing I know, Matt's messaging me as well, saying, what's going on? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm on a beach in Barcelona. Lo and behold, Trump's pressed the red button, tariffs galore. But it's all right. He's got a 90-day pause now, so it's cool.
Well, yeah. And it's funny the thing that, Matt, you keep mentioning as well about, like, how the sequence of events between, you know, markets crashing, the announcements, huge amounts of Ethereum or cryptocurrency being bought just before announcements happened and send it straight back up. And I do believe they call that
insider trading.
Insider trading.
Yeah. Although when it's usually insider trading, but then Trump just went on Truth Social and told everyone to buy. So now it's like outsider trading.
This
that is
insane.
Wild.
Yeah,
this is insane. Like, how is that? No one batted an eyelid, by the way.
No.
People are talking about it, but no one batted an eyelid.
I think it does back up his, like, because it's difficult trying to make out that you're a man of the people while also being born a millionaire and inheriting half of Manhattan.
Yeah.
Like, it's a tough act, but he's pulling it off. And I think, like, giving people financial advice.
This is not financial advice.
Just before you do something crazy is like, you need to give people something. Otherwise, it's just you making loads of money. Whereas if you're like, everyone on Truth Social, get some advice and I'm a man of the people. But it also means that then people are more likely to go on Truth Social. And if more people go on Truth Social, then there's more traction for that company, and then that company becomes worth more. So there's like all these ways that he's making money. The Trump fund is making money that he's nothing to do with.
Yeah. And I think, on the train in, I was thinking about this whole situation. I think what's happening here is that the blockchains are anonymized by design, and they are taking advantage of that. Right? It's not tracked.
Yeah.
It can't be traced back to the person. Anything to do with identity is stripped out, like, immediately before it's even sent to the blockchain. So no one knows, unless they know they can tie you to an address, right? No one knows who that person is.
Yeah.
And make no mistake, they are taking advantage of this.
Yeah. But they've done the same with all of those things, right? It's like, even the sort of the rules in the Constitution of the United States. It's like, you're not really supposed to do that as a president because it was invented by 13 gentlemen slave traders.
Just drop that in there.
Yeah. It's like, they were gentlemen and they had these rules where it was like, well, if you're president, then you wouldn't do this. And it's like, but I can do it. And his whole presidential journey, even in the first term, was doing stuff that was outside of what is normally done, but it's not.
Yeah.
Specifically said that you can't do it. It's just one of those things where, like, the tax returns is a great one, where it's like, but presidents always release their tax returns, and he's like, yeah, okay, I'm not doing it. And there's not one rule that says that I have to. And everyone was like, oh, yeah, we did not make a rule for that. The same with Bitcoin, where it's like, there's obviously not going to be a thing in the Constitution that's like, you can't buy 1 million Bitcoin and then make the price of Bitcoin move, because it was 500 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. And because cryptocurrency is not yet, I would say, officially recognized as a store of value. I don't know. Like, do you know anything about that?
Yeah, so it completely depends on the jurisdiction, right? So whether, like in the UK, obviously, it came in 2020, they were going to start regulating or at least licensing it in the UK. But it's only this year now that they're actually putting the framework in place for what that's going to look like. They're kind of doing it in a staged approach, heavy on the stablecoin side.
Yeah, I noticed as well.
Yeah, so I think it was a bit of confusion before because it was, going to all be managed by the FCA. They realized, wow, this is a huge market, especially a growing market in the UK with, cross-border payments and utilizing stable coins for the bigger purpose. And I think that they were like, we can't handle this, so we're going to pass it over to Bank of England. So I think, and yeah, I need to, again, fact check, but I swear that the Bank of England, as of, I think it was September of last year, started to recognize stable coins as like an actual asset, because they could realize that it holds its value essentially backed one-to-one.
Yeah.
That it
sort of proved itself over time, I guess, right? And the stability is.
Yeah, and I mean, there's only been a few cases where it hasn't been essentially backed one-to-one, especially in my time. But yeah, it's just one of those things that it's just such a growing market, it cannot be ignored anymore.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what I thought. There's so much money in crypto, and the fact that everything's public in itself is wild, right? Because you can see the money moving, right? So, for example, if I go to a Uniswap and I go to the liquidity pools page, and then you see the transactions moving, and it says like 3 minutes ago this moved, 5 minutes ago this moved, 10 minutes ago this moved, and when you look at the amounts, people are moving millions in one go. They're just shifting millions around, right? Yeah. And I'm looking.
Imagine getting an MEV sandwich on that.
Yeah.
We'll get to that later. Yeah.
And I moved. Freudian.
So I moved all the money that I made in that.
All that money that I have, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I was just watching my own transactions go through. But when I looked at this list, just updating millions of USDC moving at the same time, I'm just like, these are people hiding their wealth.
Yeah. So on that point, obviously working, like, it's such a big market right now, cross-border payments utilizing USDT as the underlying payment rail. And there are like big businesses, big corporates who are all doing this. And I know that it's in jurisdictions where they don't necessarily have the right, accounting systems in place to monitor that or actually really fully track it. So it's a huge hiding of wealth. And
Yeah.
but equally, I completely think that it's transforming the way that we look at traditional finance, in a sense that it's going against Swift, and it's really kind of speeding things up. The world is moving quicker because of this way of transacting. But we just don't have the right infrastructure in place to be able to track it right now. And I think that's also why it's...
By the way, infrastructure for blockchain is so hard because everything's decentralized, right? This makes everything just difficult. So many people don't know why it's hard, why data is hard. And there's this term in the space saying decentralization is hard. Being someone that's worked both on the back end and the front end and all the infrastructure systems, having to pool together data about like your portfolio is actually such a data intensive task, because if you think about a traditional bank account, you've got your record, and then you've got a list against your record that just says how much you've got, right? GBP X amount, USD X amount, right? But in the blockchain space, it doesn't work like this, right? Each token is a smart contract, and each smart contract holds the data about who owns what. If you consider the fact that you've gone from everything being in one place to first having to find out what assets like Mr. X owns, but to do that, you have to query every single token that exists just to find out how much this one person has in their portfolio.
You just go through every token and see what wallet it's in.
Yeah.
And then you see if it's in the wallet that you want it.
Yeah.
The one that you're checking.
And that is an incredibly data compute expensive exercise.
Yeah.
And that's why whatever service you come across that does blockchain data, it's costing them a lot of money. Not only is it costing them a lot of money, but it's often not really commercially viable. And a lot of these companies that offer data either go bust or their data is poor.
What about the quantum chips, though, if they exist?
This, good point. Like, this could speed things up for sure, but we haven't really applied the quantum chip technology to operating systems.
There's one in a room and someone's using it to play with, but it's not being used for anything substantial.
They're not like, they've not put it in a computer and then put it in a Mac in front of you, or put it in a server to be used.
Yeah.
They haven't done anything like that. It's just really just...
It feels like when they first made Watson and it was just in a room that IBM could use.
Yeah, exactly. That's the stage we're at with like quantum processors or stuff like that. So yeah, it's pretty wild. Like, this is why, so just coming back to what you said about like, the tooling isn't there. The tooling isn't there, and I think that's what they're struggling with. In the last episode, we talked about how actually the minds that are needed to make using crypto in shops aren't even working for the Bank of England. They're not even working for the FCA. They're not even working for like the financial institutions. They're on X having arguments.
Yeah, I think it's been such a shame that like there's been so many downfalls, because I feel that when we start going on the up and where things are moving, there's some momentum in the UK and globally, something happens. Like things were looking great, and then FTX went down, all the banks went down. They then became stricter on, well, not all the banks, but some of the key ones that crypto businesses were using, Signature, Silvergate, Silicon Valley. They went down, and it just completely set the framework then for more heavier, AML checks, fraud checks. Crypto businesses then weren't being accepted. They couldn't get banking. So it's like, when things start to get going, something happens and it just slows things down again.
That's what's been a massive problem, actually, is that it was the Wild West. For such a long time, it was the Wild West, and to an extent, it sort of still is. Mr. X, you were asking about like financing in crypto and how it all works and stuff. And the impression I got was, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were asking how do you basically make money out of thin air?
110%. But I think one thing I'm still failing to understand, I think this is what drew me to you guys' podcast in the first place, because you guys actually care about the tech behind crypto. A lot of people don't. They just want to make money. And I think that is actually the major disparity. Like, why it's not actually getting adoption. People don't care about the tech. Well, certainly I don't. I care about making money on the asset class, not like what's going on.
But that's what people
TradFi.
understand.
Yeah.
But that's what people understand, though, don't they? They don't, like, I don't, in the same way that when I drive my car, I don't really care about the ins and outs of the engine.
Yeah.
Sort of just want it to take me from A to B.
And I don't think many people do.
Yeah.
It's just like when you look at a company
Definitely
on...
do.
Yeah. Like when people buy a business on the stock market, right? They don't actually think I'm buying a business. They're thinking I'm buying Amazon for $100 a share. And that's it. They don't think, well, Amazon's actually a massive business. They're just thinking Amazon's price is $100 and I'm going to sell it at 120. Same people are thinking the exact same thing in terms of Bitcoin and crypto as a whole, I think.
Yeah.
But then that's why liquidity pools is interesting, because then you make your money by people trading stuff, not by buying things yourself. Yeah. It's like you're becoming the casino.
This is not financial advice.
So, you know, I was going to put together, I've been thinking about this for ages, and I'll probably release this as a proper long form video, but I was going to put together a video showing people how to make money. It is like the number one question I get asked by everyone. They're like, oh, how do I make money with crypto? It's still like that. So many people have lost money, but the dream is still alive. The fire is still there. And I don't really understand why, but like people still see it as like a magical money making thing. And the reason I think is because everyone knows someone that did make a lot of money. Of course,
they've had a success story.
Yeah. But I would say for every one person that's made some money, there might be 1,000 or 10,000 that lost money.
Yeah.
And we'll come on to this story, but like, I think it's finally time, like, just to show people how to make money with crypto, but low risk using stablecoins. So it's low risk.
This sounds like a massive contradiction. Crypto
Well, I'm just being realistic.
Not financial advice.
Yeah. This is not financial advice.
Absolutely. I'm just being realistic. I think people need to be knocked down a peg. And it's not like...
How do I make money? You make a very small amount of money.
Yeah. I'm going to show you, but it ain't what you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
So, you know, it would be between two stable coins, Liquidity Pool and Uniswap or something like that, was $50 on each side. And that is low risk, low reward, but it would educate people.
How low is the reward?
You would probably be
like $1.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Well, the thing is, I'd be interested to share this with you, because you might turn around to say this is still higher than what you'd make.
Yeah, we actually had a chat on the way here where, so we were looking at
Cosmos?
Yeah. A load of different coins that offer quite a high APY just for staking or staking your coins with them. And there's somewhere there's like 15%. And you're never going to get more than 4%, 4.5% from a bank. But then if you put all of your coins into Cosmos and it goes down, because you're getting 15% of those coins, and if those coins are not worth anything, then
and I think
the growth isn't worth anything.
I think this is where we need to be careful in terms of when we say it could be used as a store of value, because ultimately, when you chuck in any form of volatility, I don't want my asset to go down in value and then still get a yield. There's two factors at play.
But then that's like Ethereum has 2.4.
Yeah, but if I put 100 quid in a bank, I know that 100 quid is going to be there in 3 years and still get 5%. Whereas if I put 100 quid in Cosmos, the price could go down 50%, even though I'm still getting a 15% yield.
But then what about the use case of like, you could have $100 and then in, say, 3.5 years' time, it's not worth anything because no one trades with America anymore.
Still a possibility.
Right. It was a big learning thing for me. I remember the day that I had my first Uniswap position, and you talked me through it on a call.
Yeah, we did it together, didn't we?
Yeah,
I remember.
We were on a video call, and I went on Uniswap and connected my wallet and really slowly set up my first pool.
How long ago was that? A long time ago.
Ages. I found the NFT the other day. There was like the Uniswap position.
Oh, really? No way. It's crazy. So
I closed it when took a step away, and I basically, at the wrong time, changed all my coins.
Story of our life.
Took loads of coins that were about to go off and just put them into Ethereum and closed all my Uniswaps and
Oh, no way. Always the way, mate.
took a couple of years being like, I can't just sit and watch all these trades all day.
Yeah, this is why.
Hashtag bot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is why when when all these dips happen and all this carnage happens in the market, I've taught myself to just take a breather. And I advise this to anyone, right? To anyone. Teach yourself how to take a step back and go and do something else.
Yeah.
Go down to the pub and have a pint.
Touch
Just
grass.
try and forget about it. Like me of all people, right? I have really bad FOMO. I can't take it. Right? It drives me absolutely mad. So it has taken years of like re-engineering myself and my mind and stuff to try and like learn how to take a step back. And do you know what? Every single time it stopped me from losing money.
Yeah.
I can't stress that enough.
There was some good
You're not
stuff
making
though.
mad moves.
Yeah. Which I'm used to making.
Because I had the same thing, and sometimes, like when we first started hanging out, me and Kia would just stay up all night because neither of us wanted to back down and go to bed. And it was like one night in Kio's flat in Elephant and Castle that from scratch, starting at 2 a.m. after being at the pub, we went and built a gesture control
I remember.
screen. It was like a touch screen that you didn't have to touch, and it worked from like a couple of millimeters away with this Minority Report screen in his
It
bedroom.
was literally a Minority Report style screen. Like that was
It
like,
was mad. I can't believe we even made it work.
I know, that was like 10 years ago. So basically, can you imagine this? Imagine this. These are the type of people that we are. But we were absolutely wasted. Went back to my flat. My room was effectively like what a robot factory might look like. It just had pieces of technology everywhere. There
Had
was
a bedroom
drawer.
this size. There was a bed in the corner, like a single bed in the corner, and the rest of it was just like a workshop.
It was a workshop. It literally looked like a technology workshop from the future, like a mad scientist.
Yeah.
And we just put a load of together.
Yeah.
And we ended up
Just
making...
grabbing bits and wiring
do
them
you know
up.
what I mean? Which is wild. Hence why, in the fast forward to today, we're basically doing the same thing with technology and crypto now.
Yeah.
You know, and so just
some more realistic hours of the day.
and trying to make some money in the process, which is not going so well.
This is not financial advice.
Thanks.
All
Croc.
going slowly.
Yeah.
Or going too slow for my liking, or too volatile for my liking as well, right?
Or you just run out of money to buy the dip.
Yeah, pretty
That's a
much.
possibility.
Yeah, that's a high
The dip
possibility.
is dipping, but I have no money to buy the dip.
Yeah. You know, so if I had the money, I would just be buying dips, left, right, and center, right? But, you know, you get humbled in several ways, including losing lots of money. But yeah, just coming back onto your point, by the way, of the Bank of England, how did it go from, or why did it go from the FCA to the Bank of England? Like, I don't understand why that happened.
Yeah, I don't think there was too much of a thought process behind it. It was just more so who would be the best party to deal with this. And I feel that stablecoins and looking at how that's integrating in with traditional financial services falls outside of the FCA. They're there as being a regulator.
Right, so they're really just there to enforce the rules.
Exactly.
And
Whereas
make up the rules.
make up.
Yeah, Freudian.
To be fair, like this is the year that they're kind of building the framework. So it's very much based off the traditional FCA handbook based on, you know, normal payments, right?
Okay.
But essentially this whole framework is just being built out this year. So no one knows what it even looks like yet because it's coming out in stages, you know, quarterly.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to it, I just think that, you know, the FCA recognised that if this is going to be a financial instrument, it should sit with the likes of the Bank of England as opposed to the regulator.
Yeah, no, that
even though
makes
they're
sense.
defining the rules around it, they just didn't think that it should have sat with them.
Yeah, that makes sense because I remember going to a sort of like a mini conference and the Bank of England were there. And I sat in on their little talk that they did. And the guy who runs the Bank of England technology, he was like at the top. And he runs their technology sector and also I guess the future money side of things as well. And they were testing a British stablecoin internally.
Yeah,
Brick-
so
Brickcoin.
GBPT exists.
Really?
Yeah. It's been around for years.
Not Bitcoin. Bitcoin was something else, wasn't it?
Bitcoin was the first thing they talked about. GBT is
Right.
like just a tethered.
GBPT is the
No way.
Yeah.
I did not know that existed.
I can't think of the name of the company, but they obviously my previous business, we used to do a lot of cross-border payments, so they approached us probably over 2 years ago. They're the first company in the UK. I believe it was Isle of Man where they're registered.
Of course it was.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah.
It's funny because everyone was moving to Isle of Man at that time, and it was like, it's such a small place and there's only so many houses that they can put the tech team in.
That's what you want to invest in. Property and tax havens.
Oh my gosh, like literally, I was like, how are they going to...
Giving me too many ideas here.
Yeah.
This is not financial advice.
Stock exchange, which house, tax havens.
And it was like, yeah, they approached us and said, do you see much of a market for this? And we were like, no, unfortunately not, because most of our clients who are looking to these payments all want dollar. Hence why Tether, not even really USDC, but definitely Tether was our key instrument there. But yeah, GBPT exists, and it was audited by Grant Thornton, I believe, so one of the big four.
Right.
But yeah,
That's wild. And
I don't know too much about the one that you're talking about, though.
Bitcoin. I wonder if Bitcoin was actually just the marketing name for whatever was underlying underneath. I don't
Maybe
know.
it was.
Like,
I thought it was more of a separate, like they were just making a coin that was like a British
right.
government owned,
Okay.
like a meme coin, but for
But
Britain.
right. Could have been.
Yeah.
It could have well been.
Yeah, but maybe it was GBT.
Yeah.
So I don't remember reading about it being tethered.
It might be a different one.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
it might be.
yeah.
Because I imagine that anything that the Bank of England has got anything to do with, they're going to want it to match the utility of the pound. But Mr. X is shaking his head.
I think it's not that I'm shaking my head, but it's just I can't question to the open floor. What is the utility of having a central bank digital currency in the first place, other than to track what your subjects are spending their money on? And
Good point.
knowing
Because we
how
have
to
a
tax them.
pound coin
Yeah.
already.
Hmm.
My theory, and I'm just collecting my thoughts here, right? My theory is that they're maybe looking into the future here, and they're seeing the future of payments. And I think this is why when blockchain and, these coins came along, it, especially in, like I would say like highly technological countries, they didn't ban it. They didn't outlaw it. They just decided to watch what was going to happen here because they detected that this was more of an evolution of the old style money system, and there was a natural evolution of how people use payments and how they deal with finance happening, and they just sat back and watched.
But then surely Satoshi is probably, I don't know if he's alive or not, turning in his grave, because it just shows that there's a disparity between blockchain and then crypto. And then the powers that be are just using blockchain and taking it into a TradFi system, which then would ultimately defeat the purpose of crypto. Thanks. I was away from this.
That was the right sound effect at the right time.
I was thinking though, like another reason to do it, like we talked about last week, how the biggest blockchains, when we did the top 10,
Yeah.
and it was like Coinbase and
Base.
Base
Yeah.
and Binance were like two of the top 10 biggest. So if you set up a coin on its own blockchain that's for a country and it's operating at that size, then you're also like collecting gas, which is effectively like
Yeah.
a really simple tax on transactions, which we don't currently have on pounds, right? There's no tax on sending money. So maybe they were just setting it up because it's
Or is
another
there?
way. I think maybe certain amounts you have to pay tax on transactions.
No, I not that I deal with transactions anyway,
Okay.
but I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'd be like a new way to gather money. Like if they set up and be like, oh, we're moving from the GBP to GBPT, then yeah, you just get to skim every transaction.
It might be on Trump's tariff card next.
Could be. What isn't?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What isn't?
Yeah, I think I was confused about Tether. So we were talking privately about the MEV scam, and someone lost like hundreds of thousands of dollars because they were transferring from one stable US dollar coin to another. Just seems like the most pointless thing, because if they're both tethered, then like
What's
what
the
difference
point?
does it make?
I think the only reason someone would do that is if they were looking to work with a platform that was, say, circle focused or tether focused. So
Right.
it's, you know,
That's really interesting.
yeah, I think that's the only reason
Yeah.
you would ever do stable to stable, right?
Because, you know, Tether involved in a few things, and one of them is like, is it Truth? Or there's like a decentralized video platform, and I can't remember the name of it, but it became like very heavy alt-right when they all got banned from YouTube.
Nice.
And it was a lot of like American right-wing truthers sharing videos on this platform, and it's managed by Tether.
Not good.
Interesting.
Not a good look.
This is not financial advice.
But yeah, it was very much like, that's such a long applause. Yeah, they sort of have, they invest in messaging and video sharing and all these decentralized programs, but they're being used a lot by the alt-right. So maybe it was someone in America that had USDC, because Coinbase is an obvious choice if you're investing as an outsider, and then being like, oh wait, I'm actually more involved in the Trump side.
Yeah, without realizing it. Or intentionally with realizing it, like knowing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was someone who was like works for Trump that was moving a load of dollars over to try and purposefully fund things like right-wing video sharing.
Yeah. Yeah.
This
Yikes.
might be a bit of a naive question, but stablecoins, are they pegged to the local currency?
Yeah, so you can have, there's loads of different stable coins. It's just which ones have been audited that make them credible. So I know that they have obviously got one. We've got GBPT, which is audited, USDT, USDC. I think it's USDC's been audited. I don't believe USDT has, or is it the other way around?
We did some research after the last one, and
Yeah.
it was once, and they didn't have enough dollars.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for USDT.
Yeah.
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 And then when I was reading about it, there was a thing saying that they sorted it out, but I couldn't find out how they sorted it out.
So on their website, they have a transparency report, something like that. A page
yeah.
Yeah, that basically says how much, like, it looks like the majority of their treasury has now been made up with actual, like, dollar to coin, you know, binding. But there's still a portion of it that is not accounted for. But when I first saw that report many years ago,
They have the certificate, though. That IOU that they wrote for themselves. I mean, like, and don't worry about the
that's
rest.
basically the rest of it. You know, so you can go to their website and check, and there is a small percentage, I think it's like 11%, that's still unaccounted for, but I think they're trying to make up the treasury, or it's maybe getting smaller over time.
Yeah.
So they're doing it, but back when the first report was done, it was like 75% or something of it was just like missing, do you know what I mean? Or something like that. And they tried to say, oh yeah, well, this white paper is the rest of it, you know, or something like that, you know. You know. But check on their website, like, you know, I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head, so it might not be correct.
Yeah.
This
But you can essentially set up one anywhere as long as it's goes through those processes.
Interesting.
Are you getting ideas, Mr. X?
I always have ideas.
Yeah. Tell me about your...
No rug pulling, though.
No rug pulling, no.
None whatsoever.
Just set up a tether for every currency. Right.
Well, I'm
You
surprised.
just get a load of it, like buy 1 million dong and do a Vietnamese
I'm
tether.
surprised. Yeah, I'm surprised that people haven't done this sooner, though. But is it because there's no regulation, or do people want the regulation to be protected?
I think if you're going to go and do something like this, it needs credibility, right? So platforms aren't going to work with a non-credible stablecoin, or one that hasn't been, you know, gone through the audit process. The same way that the likes of big exchanges won't allow any tokens on their platform until they've gone through that vetting process. So there is a form of risk management there. But yeah, it kind of, what's the point of spending all this money or creating something if you know it's not going to get listed?
Yeah, I see what you mean. I think, you know what's going through my head now as a developer is the bars solo. Right, you know, so, like, when I say the bar solo, I'm talking about the development bar. Do you know what I mean? It's so easy just to spin up a token.
Yeah.
Right? It's so easy to, you can get an audit on the cheap. Right?
Yeah. You could vibe code a token.
Well, I've got vibe coding here, by the way. We'll come on to that.
Yeah.
Right. Because, I'll stop there. Yeah. So, But yeah, I'm just wondering, like, how easy is it for me just to boot up a token ASAP? You know, initially mint one, for example, just one, and have my pound coin here and go, that is for this coin. And have it audited by a mate, right? Do you know what I mean? And get some, do you know what I mean? Like, just feels like the bar's a bit low. And I think this is why when there's no regulation in place and the financial institutions don't recognize cryptocurrency as a real store of value, the public don't have the faith that maybe some might do, but I'm not sure.
But I think that's where if you're wanting to, you know, invest in something and you say, oh, okay, it's on Coinbase, I must trust it, or if it's on OKX or, you know, and I think when the exchange is more credible, you're more likely to trust it than if you go onto a platform where, you know, the entry requirements are Wild West. Exactly. So, you know, there's a huge difference there between, like, your institutional investors are going to want to look at those bigger platforms because it's a trusted, you know, oh, well, if they've allowed it on their platform, it must be okay. But it's still very much the Wild West on, I'd say, the 10 and under exchanges.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
I've still had that issue with staking. And like, staking seems like really easy money, but I've never done a lot of it.
Yeah.
And I remember D said I wouldn't bother when we were talking about it.
Oh, right, D. Yeah, he's referring that Mr. D.
Big D.
Wild scenes here.
I don't know if he wants to be named, but
no, he doesn't for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mr. D.
Mr. D.
Mr. D. Yeah, staking is, just to explain, is a concept where you lock in, and actually, Mr. X, I'd love to know if there's some sort of similar mechanism that exists in TradFi.
Yeah, I think it's a lot like when you put, you know, you get an ISA or a savings account, and they're like, if you promise not to take this money out for 5 years, we'll give you fixed term investment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, right? Because you just say you're not going to take your coins out.
Yeah, because so what you do is you take a ton of your coins, and it can be for any coin, and it's usually the owner of the coin or the token that is setting up this scheme. And what they say is, put X amount of your token, lock it up into a different smart contract, don't touch it for a year. Actually, the smart contract wouldn't allow you to touch it, right? For a year, and then after it's done, you can come and take it back after like a year or 2 years or 3 years, or it can be 100 years. But as far as I understand, this is to prevent token price movement. It's to basically stop it from being so erratic in terms of price movement, and they will reward you for it. You put your tokens away, and when you unstake it, you'll unstake it, but they'll give you a bit of a reward on top.
But would you only stake stable coins, or would you
whatever the token is?
Whatever the token is, whatever the token is. So, like,
no, I don't think there's anything like that. The closest thing, similar to what you said, would just be fixed term.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's not for the same reasons, though, is it?
No.
Yeah. So when you do a fixed term,
they use that money then, don't they?
They use it, don't they? And
they lend it to someone else. So like your mortgage is someone else's savings.
Yeah, and then that's what gets me.
It's so depressing when you put it that way. Yeah.
And then they get the money just for lending you somebody else's money.
And then you get 1% back.
Yeah.
And you will be happy with that.
Yeah, and they get 5% on the mortgage.
Yeah.
This is depressing when you when
TradFi's a scam.
I should probably leave the room.
No. Please don't, Mr. X. We need you here for balance.
Yeah.
So, be rude.
Thanks.
You know about like this whole thing with crypto and like the thoughts and the feelings around it, right? Did I ever tell you about like the night school that I tried to set up?
I love this one. Yeah.
What night school?
No. Yeah. Let me tell you about my night school that didn't even get off the ground. Why? Why? I'll tell you why. Because everyone hates crypto.
Yeah.
And deep down, there's this, you got two levels of crypto. You got this like magical bean style like effect, right? Where people are desperate to make money and they can't wait to make money. They want to make money, you know, they improve their lives or whatever, right? And then you have the reality, which is most people lost money, especially when you have these huge bull runs. Because what happens is people only invest when it's at its peak because they get massive FOMO and they don't want to lose out, and they see it on BBC News and they're like, oh my God, we need to invest in like cryptocurrency. But what they don't realize is that it's at its peak.
Yeah, it's on the news because it's at a peak.
Yeah, which is why it's been reported on traditional news, right? Old school television news, because it is an event that doesn't happen. And people forget to realize that it is at its peak, and they go all in, right?
That's that classic Warren Buffett thing, though, right? Where he was like, you've always got to do the opposite of everyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When your barber starts talking to you about buying Bitcoin, that's when you should be selling Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Or your postman.
Yeah.
I've heard this analogy.
And
This is not financial advice.
what happens is everyone bought in at the top and then just watched their money disappear into nothing, right?
And then blamed us because we told them how to set up a wallet.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
is this what happened at your night school?
Oh, well, here's the thing.
Circling back.
It's
Gil bought a Lambo and everyone.
and part of like the problem was I'd done that classic thing where I was starting to write all the presentations and stuff. I had the curriculum in my head. I was ready to go. I couldn't wait for this. And I was going to be like, people are going to be like loving it.
Tell them the name of the thing.
Yeah, so here's the thing. The name of the night school, are you ready for this? Was Crypto Night. Kryptonite.
I'm not going to lie, that's hard.
And I'd even...
So cheesy. So cheesy.
And
What was the name of it?
Kryptonite. So I'd registered the domain, bad idea already, because I'd committed myself to it. Registered domain, built the website,
Amazing.
was even offering the first set of people to come for free. Right, I was going to charge a very small amount, but
Sounds like a scam.
I wanted, yeah. But the thing is I had failed to realize one, how people felt about crypto, right, which was shit. They hated it deep down. They had family drama because someone had lost a load of money in crypto. And two, when I was trying to call around to find space to hold these lessons, no one would speak to me. Like, because I sort of failed to realize, yeah, that's literally how I felt every time one of these phone calls happened, right? And I failed to realize that the people that had lost money wasn't the traders.
Traders never lose money.
No. It wasn't...
Because they're hedging.
It wasn't because... Yeah, it wasn't the traders. It wasn't the bankers. It wasn't even the crypto bros and girls, right? The people that lost money was like the common person.
Yeah.
Right?
The
It was...
crypto adjacent people.
Yeah, it was the receptionist in the library. Do you know what I mean? It was...
The library where you were trying to book a room to.
yeah. If they found out, they'd boot us out straight away.
Yeah.
They're like, get out! But, it was the common person. It was like the car wash cleaner. It was like, it was just, it wasn't people that, it was people that were so far removed from crypto and technology. And these were the people that I was trying to speak to at the end of the day, and not one of them wanted to speak to me. As soon as they were engaged, up until the point that I told them it was a crypto night school, and they didn't want to know. They just, every single one of them, it was about 5 or 6, by the way, it wasn't an isolated case. Every single one of them just stopped talking to me. Like, and I'm talking they just blanked me.
But at the end of the day, like, I know we joke and we say, oh, monopoly money, things like, it's still money.
Yeah.
You know,
It is.
you're still putting
Absolutely.
the investment in, that is your hard cash,
Yeah.
you know, and I think that anything financial or money related is always going to be emotionally triggering if you've made a loss.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I realized. So this was about like 2 years ago, and it took me up
Right
until-
around FTX.
Yeah. And it took me to that point to realize the depth of how people felt when they lost money. And by the way, my crypto night school, right, was I'll tell you the contents of it. It was going to be educating people about blockchains and how they work in the first place, how tokens move about. I was going to educate people how you can create your own token and letting them understand smart contracts and how actually every token or bit of logic on a blockchain is just a smart contract, and that's how it all works.
To make that as a set of videos for C-word YouTube.
This is the thing. Like, we can talk about that later, but like, you know, it was genuinely well-intentioned, and it was showing people how not to fall for scams. It was showing people how to, if they want to invest some money, how they can do it in a safe and controlled way. It was all well-intentioned, and that was because I myself have gone through, I've been rugged, do you know what I mean, with rug pull, I've lost money, I've gained money, and I was just thinking, like, people, the general public need to know about this. This is why people are getting scammed, because they don't know.
And the only way to learn was doing those things.
Yeah, exactly. And
like, you learn about rug pulls by getting rugged, and you learn about NFTs by having your whole wallet pillaged.
Bro. Yeah, I think it's just tough, because going back to what you were saying before, when you know your neighbours made 100 million quid trading crypto, and then you want to be safe, controlled, earning a decent APY, you don't want that. You want to earn 100 million quid as well. And I think that's what makes it difficult. That's why online now you just find kids selling FX courses, like just being promised millions. That's all people ultimately care about at the end of the day.
Does it work? Is it still a thing, the magic bean effect?
110%.
That's wild. I guess that's a human nature thing, right? In your line of work, Mr. X, is this a thing? Do people rock up and be like excited, desperate to make money?
I think, yeah, you definitely find clients are excited and want to make money and, you know, get market exposure. I think typically you'll find that, especially when a client is leaving one investment manager to go to another investment manager or another wealth manager. Yeah. But I think it's also the job of the advisor or the investment manager to be blunt, pipe them down as well, and, you know, actually give them, I don't want to say decent advice, but just manage expectations.
But that's the right thing to do, isn't it? And I think this is what's missing with crypto. There's no expectation management. People just go in on a wing and a prayer and with like a twinkle in their eye, and they're just like, I'm going to make money. And I think the reality drop is so harsh. It's so harsh that people never forget that. People remember the bad things, but they don't remember the good things. They take the good things as granted. That's supposed to have happened to me, but they remember the bad things, because you might not remember what might have happened, but you remember how you felt at the time.
Yeah.
And that's with everything. So I think this is the problem that we have. This is the problem I had with my poor night school. Maybe it might reincarnate itself online.
It's got to. I think we should put it as a service.
110%.
It's so useful.
We should do. We should make a series. On the YouTube channels.
And if you want to access the videos, you have to buy the kryptonite coin.
Buy the token that we're about to just do now.
But I think like going on this whole, like, you know, full circle moment, you know, it really hits people hard when they see, you know, 13, 14-year-olds, like you said, putting out channels on how to trade, and, oh, I've just created my own token, and then they go and, you know, pull it. And it's just like, that's really heartbreaking for people to know. Exactly. To know how easy it is to be done in the 30s. Think, okay, got a little bit of trading experience, but then you've got the 13-year-old on YouTube showing up, you know, making thousands and thousands.
I mean, do you know that absolutely...
It kills me. Yeah, it kills me.
It makes my heart sink when I see that. And that's like, it's a sign of like the world changing, right? It's a sign of the world changing. Like, knowledge is moving from the siloed way it used to be, where if you wanted to trade, you went to someone that could process your trades, you know? But now people are doing it themselves. Technology has allowed it to be accessed online. And
it's the same with like eToro as well, right?
Copy trading.
110%. Like, the amount of advisors that are now leaving, like, the investment space, going to companies like eToro, setting up a fund and having copy traders, because as an advisor, broadly speaking, you're going to be charging 1% on AUM, right? So if you've got 100 mil assets under management, your company's charging 1%. if you're on a self-employed model, you're going to get 50% of that as revenue, right? So £1 million, you're going to earn £500,000 a year. But on eToro, you can go to eToro, try and build a £100 million client bank. Well, it's not really client, but just copy traders.
Yeah. But if you have 1 million people doing
you get
£100, then you're still there. Yeah.
Right? So eToro is taking 2 million and they're paying you 1. That's insane. And people are just copying your trades.
Yeah.
That
You don't have to get
mechanism-
any advice. There is no, portfolio management in terms of underlying clients. It's just people are copying your trades. That's insane.
Yeah, that mechanism is like viral.
Yeah.
At its core, money plus copying the best traders.
Yeah.
I mean, how I can't see unless obviously you can lose money. Obviously, if you copy a bad trader,
This is not financial advice.
but most I don't know. Like, how well does eToro do, Mr. X?
It's dependent on the underlying trader ultimately,
Right, okay.
because they're just eToro is just a platform.
Right.
It's like any sort of crypto exchange. You go there just to facilitate your trades. The ancillary service is then having copy trading.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
We should set up a crypto copy trading.
I think that'd be quite interesting, to be fair. That's really interesting.
And it's just like buy 500 million
Yeah.
bitcoins before Trump pumps it. Copy that.
Have some sort of Twitter bot that just you're able to just
Yeah.
yeah.
I'll set up an MEV bot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're going to explain MEV.
yeah.
Yeah, because I have no clue what it is. I feel like I'm not involved in the joke.
I thought I did get it. So basically, when people are processing transactions on crypto, it's done like by an individual node. But if you know that you're about to do a big transaction, you can put a transaction either side of it, which, because there's a big transaction going through, it moves the price. So you can take money off it by moving the price of the coins.
Yeah. And in TradFi, we'll call that illegal because it's front running.
Yeah.
That is exactly what it's
Yeah.
called.
And the thing that got me was
Okay.
that massive one that we were talking about when it was USDT to USDC. How do you pump those? Because they're both tethered to the dollar. So
I think with that, I mean, again, I'm not too sure, but price moves ever so slightly. So we're talking a few decimal places.
Yeah.
Here, right?
yeah,
It does move up and down ever so slightly, because if I look at the USDC in my portfolio, the line
yeah,
is moving slightly up and down, but it's generally staying at $1. But it is moving like 3 or 4 decimal points. And I
Yeah.
think the token decimal places for USDC and T, I think it's only 4 decimal places.
Yeah, it's
That-
like 0.9996 normally,
Yeah.
or like 0.9997. Yeah.
Is that tradable with large size though? Because buying the dip on, SDT goes down to 97 cents.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do people actually trade that? Like, is that a thing?
No.
Okay,
I don't
fine.
think so. But then
It's just
the MEV is like a sandwich thing, right? So you have to put one before it and one after it.
Yeah.
So you're moving money out, and then you do the big trade, so the price goes up a bit, and then you put the money in, then you put the big transaction through to put the price up, and then you take the money back out immediately.
Yeah.
It's like milliseconds before and after.
It all happens so quick, and it can only be done by bots.
Yeah.
This is the thing. Like, only machines can execute this. So, do you know the way this happens in the first place? You're probably wondering how this is even, how a computer knows that this is about to happen before it even happens. And that's because of the design of like the way blockchain transactions work. So before a blockchain transaction is executed, it goes into something called a memory pool. And all these transactions wait there to be picked up by a node before it gets written to the blockchain. Whatever it was trying to do gets executed by a node. But before that, they sort of all go into a waiting room, these transactions, and they're just dotting about in a waiting room waiting to be processed.
Yeah. And there's a computer looking in that room
I'm not
to see a
joking.
really fat transaction in the
Turns
room.
out this waiting
That
room,
one.
Yeah.
Turns out this waiting room is made of glass. right? And everyone can see it.
Yeah.
And these bots are just sat outside, like, licking their lips, like, yeah, look at that one.
There's a couple of people there with just like an envelope, and somebody comes in with a backpack and 2 suitcases. And like, yeah.
This guy is about to do something big, right? So what they do is and the suitcases is clear, so they can see. This is the problem with like this infrastructure being open source and public, right? You can see everything, for better or for worse. You can see everything, and they see what's inside, and they're like, right, there's going to be a massive transaction with that token. So they go in and they buy loads of that token first. The price of it goes up. That means the person with the bags who wants to buy a load of that token is now about to get a lot less because they thought they were getting a lot of these tokens, but actually the price has just gone up because the person standing in front of you went and bought a load of tokens as well. You don't get much. The bot afterwards comes along and then just sells immediately. Yeah, because the price has gone up. So it's quite hard to understand. There's 3 steps.
Here's what I didn't understand. How, if you see big stacks in the waiting room, how do you buy before they've gone through? Because you still need to wait, right?
No, that's true, but you can bypass the waiting room and you can go straight to your own node. So these bots are probably running their own infrastructure where they don't need to go to a waiting room.
Yeah. Is that like when you do your own, what was it? On Ethereum, where if you had, was it like 13,000? 30,000?
32.
32.
And
yeah.
you can
have your own node.
Run your own node, yeah. Yeah, exactly. So that's what happens.
So all you need to do is get 32 ETH.
Yeah.
And build a bot and you're good to go.
We're making money.
This is not financial advice.
This definitely isn't. And basically, that's how it works. And
I love it when step 1 of all these scams is like, have a shitload of money. Just be president.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What is 32 ETH now?
32
probably not more than 32 grand at the moment.
Tell you 32 ETH.
Like 40 grand.
USD.
48.
Yeah, 48 grand.
Quick maths.
Did you just work that out in your head?
Of course.
Yeah. Mr. X knows all the market.
Yeah.
Mr. X over here.
We should our coin should be MRX.
So that's all you need, which, to a scammer, might be a relatively small amount of money. Right?
Yeah, I think if you're investing 50 grand and then what that USDT, USDC was like 200 grand on that one example. Yeah. And if you think about them doing that to everyone, because you don't just have to do it on big ones. You could do it on little ones, right?
Yeah, you can, and it does happen.
Yeah, you just said it for every single trade that's happening.
I work for a company that runs blockchain infrastructure across several blockchains, and we have alerts set up just to say when we've been front run, when a transaction's been front run, which is, we can detect it because we see a transaction that is in our infrastructure waiting to go through, and then something happened before it.
Is there like an automatic, a stop?
You can't pull it.
You just get a warning being like, you're about to get scammed.
So if you get the warning, how do you prevent it?
Due to the nature of the blockchain, once it's in the mempool, you can't really stop it.
Right.
There's a mechanism where you might be able to stop it, right? So I'm simplifying this now. So whenever you send a transaction, you are also sending with it a piece of information saying, Mr. Node, whoever picks this up, this is how much I'm willing to pay you. And I'll give you a bit, gas. I'll give you a little bit more if you pick up my transaction sooner, right?
A little tip.
Yeah, like a tip.
Brown envelope under the table.
Yeah, it's actually called tipping. You tip the node, and what happens is this incentivizes the nodes to be like, right, I'm going to take you first. So let's say if you submit a transaction and it's about to be, that there's something wrong with the transaction or you want to change it, you submit another transaction with a much higher tip. Effectively the same transaction, but with a much higher tip, and the nodes will take that one first. But they'll see the order come through, and they'll be like, right,
you have to try and front run the front runner?
Yeah,
That's crazy, because surely then that's just a conflict of interest.
it is. But what happens is when you submit transaction 1 and 2, transaction 2 has the higher tip. They will take that, but they will see that there was transaction 1 and 2 in this chain, but they were the same transaction.
Can you not bulk up the orders as well? So
That's like a layer views and stuff too, right? Well,
How do you mean? Sorry.
roll-ups.
Oh, roll-ups.
Yeah. I think is what you're saying.
yeah, so basically if there's a transaction, I don't know, for 1,000, and there's another transaction for 2, can you not bulk them up and have one single transaction for 3 to stop said front running?
Oh, yeah, they call it batching. But actually, the thing is each one of these is still an atomic operation. It's still a one-to-one thing. Do you know what I mean? So you might submit something as a batch. Actually,
because underneath you still need each one.
Yeah,
each block on the chain is going to have the transaction in, so you can't put them through as one block. Because you'd have to have blocks.
It's complicated. It's complicated.
I've got a question that's probably not going to make it in the cut.
Go on.
But if you were a multi-chain infrastructure company,
naming no names.
Yeah.
As Matt looks at me right now.
I might just ask,
You just literally said you'd do that too.
just ask in the room in case anyone.
Just anyone's around that might be present.
Would it not be a good idea to just have your own nodes for each?
Yeah, but
chain?
they are expensive to run. This is the problem.
But it'd be so safe.
It would be so safe, yes. It would be so safe. And I would imagine...
New idea. Could we get back in for this? Node wallet.
I imagine that, the best wallets or the most private wallets are running their own infrastructure that others can't use.
Is there any wallets to do that?
I'm sure there is. I don't know, actually. But
How would you find them?
I think you would have to go and do some research onto wallets that use their own... We can ask ChatGPT. Should we ask ChatGPT?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I would for sure just have... I would much rather use a wallet that couldn't be attacked. These bots that do the... these front-running trades.
Yeah.
It's basically like just throwing a smoke screen in and being like...
That's it.
They're trying to work it out and you're just sitting next to them just shouting numbers and they can't work it out. They're like, stop it, I'm trying to do the maths. And you're like 725.
That's such a great analogy.
And then they can't do it.
For using MEVs.
But it's mad.
That is crazy. And the thing is, like, Mr. X, you're commenting on about how confusing this all is in a way.
Because I don't understand why you need a market maker if it's peer-to-peer.
Yeah, the whole thing, and even when I say this to myself, it is a mad realization. The whole thing is just cryptography under the hood. It's just...
Yeah, it's mad how people forget that when it's called crypto.
It's just all cryptographic.
It's just really intense maths.
It's just intense mathematics, which is why it's expensive to run the infrastructure, because the CPU of these machines is at like maximum. It's being slammed all the time. I would hate to see the CPU's representation of a human. Like, do you know what I mean? They would be in such a mess. Just cigarettes and like just bottles of beer like all the time, just never being allowed to stop. Just like, like bloodshot eyes and stuff,
Yeah.
We'll get a picture of that and we'll put it up on the screen if you want to do the YouTube one, just to show what this person might look like if they were a real person.
That's going to come up, isn't it, in the human trials? When they'll be like, you actually made this CPU cry, so...
So it is all cryptographic mathematics under the hood. And it's all one way as well, which is what makes it secure. So there's no going backwards. You can't go backwards to find out from, for example, someone's wallet address. You can't find out what their private key is. And from their private key, you can't find out what their 12 words were. You can't work your way backwards. You can only work your way forwards.
Yeah.
There is all these experiments and crackers and stuff like that, people trying to crack the algorithm, but whilst it is possible, it takes such a long time, and you would need quantum computing to even make it happen in your lifetime.
But I think that's such an important point to make there, because I think that there was so much scarcity. I mean, back in 2018, it was like, we weren't as knowledgeable as what we are now in the industry, in the space. And I think that a lot of people were like, oh, I'm just going to get hacked, you're going to get hacked, you're going to get hacked. And it was like, well, no, it's really hard to do that, actually.
Yeah. All of the hacks would just get someone to do something stupid.
Yeah, exactly.
Even
Like,
now, it's
like,
click a link.
Human error.
Yeah.
You know, human error, completely different. You know, if you know, give out and share your private key, things like that. But I'm talking about actually just being hacked. You know, and it's a lot more of an in-depth process than people think. You know, it's not just hacking into your bank account.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's important to make note of that because it was such a big misconception of what that looks like.
And people think, oh, I've been hacked, my crypto wallet's been hacked. You made a mistake.
Yeah, you made a mistake somewhere along the chain.
It wasn't the technology that failed you. For example, you know, if it was a bank account.
What are you trying to say?
If it was like a bank account or something along them lines, and we've spoken about this before, but it can just be as easy as someone hacking into the database and changing a couple of digits against a record. But you can't do that with crypto and blockchains because it is all cryptography and it's all one way. If you try to change something, the whole network is like, that's not right. Change it back. You know? And you had a really good analogy, Matt. Do you remember, like, everyone in the room?
Oh, yeah.
That was such a great analogy. Do you want to say it again? Because it was just on the context, it was really good.
Previously with like banks and like traditional finance, people just like, they don't know how much money there is, and it's a spreadsheet that no one gets to look at. So people are just like, oh, I'm worth this much, and you have no idea if they are. Whereas in crypto, it's like everyone's in the room and everyone knows how much money everyone has, and if someone's just like, I'm a millionaire, everyone goes, but you're not, because there's like the clear suitcase thing in the mempools. It's like everyone can see what's in the wallet.
So that person can't be like, I'm a millionaire, and everyone's just like, oh,
No, you're not.
you're not, mate.
We've all seen that you weren't. You've just like crudely drawn another zero.
House value.
Couple of zeros there, you know.
Why is this a red pen?
I'm telling you, my one bed flat in Croydon is worth £1 million, mate.
Yeah.
100%.
It will be one day.
Yeah, one day.
So MEV wallets, or should I say MEV resistant wallets, they do exist. Flashbots is one. That's a well-known one. They provide MEV resistant infrastructure.
So they charge a fee, or?
I do not know how it works actually behind.
And the MEV resistance, so far we've worked out, could just be, is most likely just going to be having their own nodes to run your transactions
They
on.
would have to. They couldn't be pulling down the open source version of the nodes on GitHub and just running it. They would have to have modified it extensively in order to be resistant. And that's like big brain stuff.
Yeah.
You know, to be able to.
I remember that being, because when we were working on the poker website, and the math for that was really intense, and that was literally just people playing cards. So that this anti-MEV stuff must be insane.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can understand why it's big money as well. Right?
Yeah.
You know,
but again, it's like an insurance, right? No one wants to make a simple trade of a stablecoin to a stablecoin and lose $200,000.
Yeah.
But even now, like, understanding all the steps, it's mental to be like, they're both worth $1, and I transferred $1 to $1, and I lost $200,000.
It's crazy.
Yeah. How is that even a thing? And the worst part is you can't get that back, right? Because again, you cannot go backwards in cryptography. Right? You cannot go backwards.
There was what was that hacker we were talking about the other week? They gave everyone their money back.
Bybit,
yeah.
They did. And that was because they were running their business in a centralized way. They had investors that the company went and asked for the money to give them loans, because they had investment in a traditional finance way, and they just gave them money and they reimbursed everyone. But if you're some decentralized exchange with 3 people working and no investment, you just set up an exchange, like, you're done.
Yeah.
You're done. No one's getting their money back. So in a way, I can see how a lot of companies run their crypto operations in like a hybrid way. They've got one foot in traditional finance and then the other foot in decentralized, like the very nature of blockchains.
Yeah.
Are exchanges, are they their own custodian as well? Because I want to buy one BTC on whatever exchange. Do they then have to go out and get that BTC and hold it in wherever they hold it?
So there's a couple of ways. There's several ways. You know, they call it like routing. the optimal way would be if they held their own crypto, because then they don't have to pay someone else to get it.
Sure.
Because they fall under the same, having to pay transaction fees and stuff like that. But a lot of these, your everyday exchange, if they can't find it on their own, in their own reserves, they'll go and find it somewhere else. They will look at all the other exchanges and go, have you got what BTC? For whatever it is the user wants, is trying to trade. And one of them might say, yeah, here it is. And
that's only on decentralized ones, right?
That's correct, on decentralized ones.
Because on Coinbase, you don't need the Bitcoin until someone takes out and sends it to another wallet. Because
I imagine Coinbase is a very different operation.
Say that again.
So Coinbase and Binance and others, they're centralized. So you don't own the coins that you have.
Mm.
You give them your money and they hold it, and they'll just be like, yeah, fine. You can say that you've got one Bitcoin and one Ethereum, but really you've just got 60 grand in an account.
But if you transfer that to a wallet
outside, then you get it,
But then...
Because then they just send it from their wallet.
Okay, fine. Okay, makes sense.
But on decentralized exchanges, like Uniswap, then they're powered by other people's...
So then it's peer-to-peer.
Liquidity pools, yeah.
Interesting.
Sorry, you were saying? Yeah, I was saying just then,
Protection.
Protection. There is no protection if you make a fat finger trade in crypto, right? If you fuck it up, you fucked it up.
No. Right? TradFi, there's so many. You've got your market, you've got your dealer that picks up the order before they route it through to the market maker. They'll tell you, if you added an extra zero, this was a fat finger. If the client doesn't have enough cash on file, there'll be a credit pop-up that pops up on the trading screen. Not enough cash on file.
This sort of stuff could easily be a feature in a wallet.
Yeah.
You do get pop-ups saying, make sure you check this transaction before you send it.
But do you know what? I recently implemented a similar feature, right? That if you are spending 50% or more of your entire wallet holdings, or was it of that particular token that you were sending, it would warn you. Do you know what was really weird? This is the thing. I implemented that feature because I understand that if you're going to build a wallet that is aimed at everyone, you've got to have a little bit of protection in there. You've got to try and look after your users a little bit, right? The people that I work with who are tech savvy, crypto bros and girls.
Why are you putting an extra click in?
They didn't like it. They were just like, why are you telling them that they're about to spend all their money? Do you know what I mean? And I was like, because we're looking after the users.
So important.
Yeah, I was going to say, so my previous company I used to work for, this is exactly what we did.
Yeah.
So it used machine learning to essentially understand the user and kind of, what their normal transaction sizes look like and who they're transacting to. So in the event of a fat finger, it would say, okay, hang on, this looks very familiar to a previous address that you sent to, but it's a different digit. Are you sure?
Yeah.
But also those kind of limit orders in a sense that it would say, typical transaction was 1K. This is 50. Well, I put the brakes on. Are you sure? Why are you doing this? And it wasn't incredibly intrusive. It would just be that tick box to say that safety net. Yeah. So instead of, are you sure? And I think it's so important that there are platforms out there like that for the novice to essentially, be onboarded with something like that. So then easily done, like you said, fat finger.
Yeah, so. And I think considering that is in place for me as a market prof.
We should have something, a counterpart in crypto,
110% for retail investors or traders.
You touched on machine learning there. And
segue.
Segue. Excellent segue.
See what you did there.
I did it on purpose.
This is why you're here. Wow. So, machine learning underpinning AI. Wild scenes at this moment in time.
A lot of people don't understand the difference because there isn't much of a difference.
It's just a marketing terminology, I think. Terminology for something that is machine learning, basically.
Yeah.
I've been vibe coding.
Can
I
you
don't even know
explain
what that is.
Vibe coding is?
I can,
I will.
I explained it to Keo before I started using it.
Well, I don't mind. Do you want to?
Vibe coding is where you get an LLM like ChatGPT or Claude to write code for you. So you ask it for something and it can write it.
Nice.
So one of the
do you literally just please write this code?
Yeah. Cool. Or you can discuss what you're going to do. So like one of the first things I'd done or seen happening was like little games and stuff. So someone that I work with had made this game on Claude, and they were like, I want to make a game and I want the way that you move around to be totally different to any other game. And then with Claude, I had like a couple more steps in the prompt to that, but basically made a game where you'd use 4 buttons, and instead of the person moving, it changes the direction of gravity, and they would like fall around a map. And that game was made, and you could just play it, and it was like makes web apps really quickly.
Yeah.
In a matter of months, that went from like stupid to really easily being able to write whole systems.
Yeah.
And now there's apps for vibe coding that you can use.
Yeah. So,
And you can build apps in
Crazy.
seconds. And the weird thing was, like, you have hallucinations with AI, which is where he puts stuff in that's just like, if you ask that one way, you were like, ask Google how many rocks you should eat in a day, and it was like 3 rocks. And it was because somewhere on Reddit, someone had made a joke, and it didn't understand it was a joke, and it took it as information from the internet and started saying it.
yeah.
That's like a misquote, but hallucination is where it just says something totally out of pocket, where it's just like, it's completely untrue.
Exactly, like the decision tree went down a wrong path.
Yeah.
It gave you just a mad answer.
Yeah.
Because it thought that was right.
Because the thing with LLMs is it's not intelligence. What it does is it works out what you want to hear and it tells it back to you. So that's why, like, if you're polite to an AI, then it'll speak back to you in like a conversational tone. Whereas if you ask it a question like you're searching in Google, it'll give you a response that's just like factual. So the way you speak to it is the way it speaks back.
Yeah.
And the easiest way to understand it is when, like, you know, if you use the middle of your keyboard and you have like predictive text, like what's the next word going to be in the sentence, it does that just on a massive scale. In the way that it speaks to you. So then going into this level where they can sort of reference code and write code, it would often get it quite wrong in the first place. But the weird thing was, if you were like, I want you to code a web page that has all this stuff on it, and it would write the code and the code wouldn't work. But then if you put the code in and said, find what's wrong with this code and fix it, it would fix it. And then people implemented those changes into LLMs where it would have basically like a chain of thought where it would write the code and it would check the code and then it would spit out the correct code.
Yeah.
More first time.
Like, I have known about like models writing code for a long time, but I did try it a long time ago and it was absolutely terrible.
It was so bad.
It was terrible.
The leap in like the last 3 months has been insane.
It couldn't get anything right. Right. And I just thought, oh, this is done. Cooked. Done.
Yeah.
So I just left it for months and months, even years. I was like, yeah, massive. That was me doing one from the models, right? And then I recently come back and I've tried Cursor. Cursor is one of the leading language models, coding models, I would say, for writing code. And do you know what? Like, my trial is about to expire and I'm going to pay for it. It's about $19 a month, $18 a month. I'm just going to pay for it outright. It got so good, like Matt said, so good, so fast that like my mind was blown. Now let me tell you about my situation.
Yeah, I was going to say it's important to understand that Keo's one of the best developers that you could meet.
Thank you.
Love how you said yeah first.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. That was like an acknowledgement as opposed to like a reaction. Thanks, Gordon. Thank you. My GitHub is public. Check it out. So
it's fun if you can't code. Like, my level of code is so basic.
Dude, I have no clue.
I really like vibe coding. It makes me feel like I know what I'm doing. So like trying to understand how Keo uses it is.
So here's the thing. Here's my take on this. Right. You know, Matt's point is totally valid, and it gives you superpowers where you would have to have learned a lot beforehand, which is fantastic. It's incredible altogether. But for someone like me, and here's the context with me, it's like, I've got 2 kids. I have to hold down family life as well as a job, but I've got tons of
podcast,
but I've got loads of products and services that I have to hold down, and as time, as the kids are getting older, if things are getting more and more difficult, and I have no time.
Yeah,
I've got no time.
I periodically get messages from Keo being like, "I've pulled the plug on things that we made like 5 years ago. Yeah, it's just been sitting there, and he's been updating the code, and it's like, yeah, that's dead now.
Yeah, it's just gone because I don't have the time. I can't maintain it.
It was pre or one of my kids.
Yeah.
And I kept the kids. Selfish.
Who do they think they are? Rocking up, monopolizing.
We had a good thing going.
But here's the thing. What used to happen is I used to try and carve out time to work on these projects. And, I'd start I'd start about 11 p.m. at night. And the next time I'd got to a checkpoint in my code where I'd built a small feature or edited some UI, it was now like 3 a.m. And then I'd look again, it was like 4 a.m. I'd have to go to bed, right? And then I'd wake up the next day absolutely knackered, and then I'd start the whole thing again. Yeah. And I'd be a zombie at the end of it. Mm. Now, when I tried vibe coding again, this time with Cursor, which uses Claude, I think, in the background,
yeah,
I was just blown away. I was smashing features out. And I do this thing where I keep looking at the time because I expect several hours to pass by.
Yeah.
Now, imagine how this is. I'm used to losing time and hours. I look at the clock in the corner. Hours have gone by. Looked again. Hours have gone by. And I've done very little, right, in the grand scheme of things. Also, I'm really tired. It's night time. Do you know what I mean? You're supposed to be sleeping. So my body's working at half capacity here. This time,
which like regular capacity for normal people.
Yeah. I was looking at the time and only minutes had passed.
Yeah.
Only minutes had passed. And I kept looking at the time and I was just like, 3 minutes had passed and I'd written a feature. Well, AI had coded a feature.
Yeah.
And it had got everything else in there. It got error control, state management, all these little things that take up extra time or that you forget about.
Yeah.
So what might have taken me months took me minutes.
My team at work, we got they're just really good at coding and they're really hot on AI. We're having a big chat about vibe coding and what it changes. Because obviously the first thing that people think is like, well, I spent ages learning to code. It's now pointless because anyone...
But it's not. And I'll tell you why after you finish that. I'll tell you why it's not.
But I was comparing it to if you're going to use vibe coding properly, it basically puts it in your position as if you're a CTO, a lead programmer somewhere, what you do is you tell a team of devs what you want to happen and then they write all the code and then you check all the code and you change anything that's not right and you implement it. So now, basically, vibe coding shifts anyone who could code up to that lead developer role, and any sort of lead developer gets put to CTO. So it bumps everyone up a level, and people that couldn't code, it sort of puts you in a way where you can write a load of code, but then you still have to ask it, being I don't know why this isn't working.
Yeah. So it's interesting about this. So let me tell you about what my experience with someone who doesn't know how to code, right, and using vibe coding to try and build a product versus someone like me who knows how to build everything end to end using vibe coding. Let's say you take the example of building a house. You're vibe coding a house, okay? Someone who doesn't know how to build a house would come along to the prompt and they were like, this is how they would build a house. Right, let's get the roof in first, right? And then they'd be like, okay, put the driveway in next. Okay, do you know what? Let's put a chimney and let's put the top floor first, and then and then let's build out the rest of the house. Oh, the foundation. Yeah. Let's afterthought. Just shove that in. Oh, forgot about all the wiring and the plumbing. This house is right as a product has been built by someone prompting who doesn't know how to build a house. It is and it is never going to work. However, if you know how to build a house, you will be an absolute expert at driving the AI to build the best product. You will know how to do it. You will know how to fix the problems. You'll be like, right, get the foundations in first. Do the wire, let's build a skeleton, of the house. Let's get the plumbing, the electrics in first. All the basic essential stuff, you will know how to build it. And that's where vibe coding absolutely excels. If you know how to build a product, you can instruct it to build it correctly one time. Because here's the thing. Every prompt is charged, right? It costs money. And there's quite a lot of horror stories online about people having $500 bills and stuff like that because they were just trying to build a product. And the thing is when you make a mistake and you try to fix a mistake, every prompt you're doing to try and fix the mistake is being charged to you, right? So you're paying to fix your own mistakes. Whereas if you are a coder already, you would hardly make them mistakes in the first place. For example, driving a car, you might have the best car, but if you're a shit driver, you're going to crash that car, or you're not going to use it to its full potential. And eventually, people will look at you and be like, you might have a great car, mate, but you're a shit driver. And the same thing applies to how people vibe code. You know, if you're not a good driver, then you're not going to drive the product or build a very good product in the first place.
It's interesting as well, like what you're trying to build. So if you're building an app from scratch, you could vibe code that. But like one of the examples I had was I'd used an LLM to work out when was the best time for me to take my kit days at work while I'm on shared parental.
Yeah.
So it was like, I'm going to be away on these dates, and I want to go in like 2 days a month. This day is best. Find me all the dates that fit within that. And I was finding it really hard to visualize it because it just put out a list. So I went on Claude and I was like, make this into a visible calendar and lay out as a standard thing. So I had like all the months, all the days were highlighted that I was going to take off, and then I adjusted it from there.
Yeah.
But when you're using Claude to make something like that, when it's thinking, it shows you it right in the code, and you can switch between the code it's written and the output. So I would look at the calendar and be like, no, that's not right, change this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you could see it rewriting the code. But if you know code, then you could just adapt the code yourself.
And this is the interesting thing. So like I've recently built an app in record time, right? And I purposely made it
Casually.
Yeah. I purposely made it simple. It's just a list app, right? It's just a list app, but it's an AI version of list app. So basically
Step one, make app.
Yeah. So basically you're entering your items for your list, but it's predicting your next lists. So even when you go to your new list and you want to create a new list, it will tell you, is this your list that you're probably looking for? And it takes into account your previous list and your location of where you are. So if you're near a shopping centre, it will say like shopping.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It will think it's a shopping list.
And putting the things that you always buy from the shop.
Yeah,
right.
exactly. And it's pre-listed all your shopping items that you might want next based on your previous shopping lists. And it also categorizes everything for you. So dairy is in one section. Do you know what I mean? So, but the thing
that's
is,
the worst bit about my shopping list.
Yeah, everything's not in a
You go in and you're
All
going
the
back
different
and forth.
aisles, yeah.
So
That's when it laid out from the door to the till.
So here's the thing, like, so I coded that whole thing end to end, including the back end services and all that. Again, remember, I know how to build this even if AI wasn't available, but I managed to do it in like what would have been 8 hours, 9 hours. What would have taken me months.
Crazy.
I did it in about 8 or 9 hours. And that was just me prompting. And it's important to note as well that when it made mistakes, because I know how to code already, I was able to steer it back in the right direction, whereas someone else would have continued in the wrong direction and then had to battle to get it back into the correct direction.
Yeah.
So this is the pitfall of it. But if you know how to code already, you are only going to benefit from vibe coding.
So this is like the difference with there's like 0 shot prompting and 1 shot, multiple shots. So that works as if you do a 0 shot prompt, you don't really give any context. You would just say like, I want an app that does lists, and it would make it, and then you have to keep going and going. Whereas like you can give it more context where you're like, I want it to do apps, I want it to predict it, I want to use locations based on this, and you could list out all the things and it would have a better chance of doing what you want. Because I think one of the things a lot of people forget is it doesn't fill in the gaps like if you were speaking to a person might do. It just takes exactly what you've said and it does it. So it's like, I think, which is really handy for autistic people because you've grown up your whole life being like given bad instructions and trying to work out what the mistakes are. So I find it quite easy to use because I speak to it how I'd want to be instructed.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And like, how has it helped you? Because I'm really fascinated about how AI will be able to help people in general, right? Not just from one side of the spectrum, but all spectrums.
Yeah,
you know?
So many of the early tools were like autism and ADHD stuff as well. So there's a list one where if you just put in what you want to do and it'll make you a list of all the things that you need to do to achieve that. So if you're like, I need to go out, then that just sounds like one thing, but it makes a list where it's like, okay, so you'll probably need to shower, you brush your teeth, you need to like get your bag, make sure you've got all the things that you need before you leave.
That's really cool.
And then you go through and you tick them off and it makes it seem more manageable and you can work through instead of feeling overwhelmed and just staying in the house.
Yeah. That's absolutely fascinating.
But yeah, I think in terms of using it, I've found it quite easy to the point where you're explaining it to people and they're like, oh, I never would have thought to have prompted something that way. And it's like, it's because you fill in all these gaps and you think that's just a normal way to think when it's not.
There's that whole thing around prompt engineering as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
Knowing how to talk to large language models.
And it's just going to get easier because like natural language prompting now is becoming so easy because they're building it in. So it's like, you will get to a point where you could say, I need an app and it would ask you the questions before it makes it.
Yeah. Well, should we give this a try? Should
Yeah.
we give this a run?
Yeah,
Should we do it?
please.
I've got it fine.
I mean, I'm going to scoot over because I kind of want to see what's happening.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the screen recording so we can have a look. And I'll describe this as well. So screen recording, rocking and rolling. Okay, so... Yeah, wow. Recording. So what are we building? We can ask it to write a token. We can ask it to build non-urgent transactions.
I think we should do delay or not.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so non-urgent transactions.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep it like PC, like, do you know what I mean? Like for the whole family.
Yeah.
You know, the whole family's invited. I've got a blank project here, and it's, you know, I'm just going to say this is using Cursor. So Cursor is like an editor that builds in all these large language models.
So just like Terminal. Does it look like?
No, it's just like a code editor, but it's got a chat thing on the side, on the right-hand side, where you talk to it.
Like Code Editor with Clippy on the side.
Yeah, basically.
Looks like you're trying to build an app.
It's like Clippy, like Robocop Clippy. Okay, so let me see. We want to build an application that, and notice I'm going to be dropping in like the right tooling that it needs to use.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right? And that helps greatly in steering it in the right direction. So we want to build an application that is a web-free tool. This will be, this should use React and MetaMask where possible.
Do you tell it what languages to use?
If you can, it will do it in the language that you want. But the fact that it's seeing React and Web3, it's going to default to JavaScript, right? So it already knows this.
How sensitive is it to language? Like the type of language that you're...
Do you mean like when you're talking to it?
Yeah.
It's pretty good at this day and age. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Can you give me an example of something that you might be wondering about?
No, nothing. I was just, when you were typing, you were thinking out loud.
Yeah.
And therefore I was thinking, if you said the wrong thing, would it
will
assume what you were trying to say or just, trying to figure it out?
It will always do the thing that you were asking it to do, even if it was wrong. You know, it will very rarely say, oh, like, you're wrong. It will actually apologize and try to do the wrong thing. You know, so you can steer it in the wrong direction.
Interesting.
So this should use React and MetaMask where possible. The main feature of this app is that you can specify a non-urgent transaction.
Should we have it where it sends at a certain gas price? Or you just want it to be low?
We can do certain gas price or just low.
I was thinking that if you do like a low, medium, or high area, and we preset those gas prices.
Okay, keep that as a feature.
Yeah.
We'll just do low for now and see what it comes out with. Specify non-urgent whereby users choose a transaction that they want to make. So notice how I'm trying to be as descriptive as possible here, because if you miss out the details, it will fill it in for you, and sometimes it's not what you want. Where the user chooses a transaction that they want to make, and the React app will monitor gas prices and wait for it to be low on Ethereum. So I'm specifying Ethereum here, so it knows what blockchain to do. So otherwise, it would have probably just pulled any old chain out. On Ethereum, when the time, when the gas price is low, the transaction will be sent via MetaMask. And then what I will put in here as well is, shall I leave it as that and see what it does?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, why not?
All right, here we go. So I'm just pressing enter, generating. It's going. It's going right now. It's building the project. All the libraries in place. So it's figured out all the libraries to use.
What does it look like? Does it look like the Matrix screen? You know, when you see all the...
It does.
It's there's the random lines in there. All
you can see all the code just being written right now on one side. So it's written the app. It's writing the style sheets.
To do it in the order you would do it?
Yes, generally, yeah. But that's because I know the right order. And it's
Oh no, yeah, I'm more interested if it does it in the right order.
Yeah, it
And
generally
how does it split back end and front end?
So this is just a front end app. So it's not done anything in the back end yet.
Oh, but when you were building the other one,
I had to.
do you prompt them separately to build the two ends and put them together?
So basically, as part of the prompt, you can tell it what files you're dealing with. So when I was dealing with a back end app, I would say, right, we're dealing with the back end part, and I would include the files. But over time, it did know which was the front and back end without me having to tell it. So it would know what needed to be done. You had to give it a bit of time, but it remembered eventually.
Right.
So done.
It's just wild what you can do now.
It's done. It's
That
done.
was like 7 minutes
Do you know what I mean?
since
So-
we started talking about.
Yeah.
So it does. I think it does give you a time how long it took. Okay, it didn't. But yeah, basically it wrote it. So this is what it says. This application will be available. Here's what the application does. User can connect their MetaMask wallet. They can specify a target gas price. So this is what it's done. It's not been automatic, but it's allowed you to specify it. It made that decision itself.
Yeah.
They
Because
can-
on the gas price monitors, they have like fast,
yeah.
medium, and
Fast,
slow,
medium,
don't
low. Yeah. They can configure the transaction details, the recipient value, gas limit, and data. When they click Start Monitoring, the app will check the current gas price every 30 seconds. When the gas price drops below the target, it will automatically send the transaction through MetaMask. Users will need to confirm in MetaMask. The application uses React for the UI, Ethers.js for Ethereum transactions, MetaMask, and TypeScript. Done.
they? And do you have to specify where? So it's just a web app currently.
Yeah. Just
You have to specify how it would work for being distributed to mobile apps, like the
you can
App
ask-
Store or the Google Store.
So you can ask it to package it for you.
Yeah.
As a web app, basically. And that when that happens, it becomes what's called a progressive web app. But here's the thing, the React application by default is already a progressive web app, so it's ready for app stores. It's already there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we could launch that on Google now.
Yeah.
Mad.
You know what I mean? Obviously, there's a lot of other stuff you'd have to do before you get through the app store.
Yeah.
But
Just for their checks and stuff.
yeah, but as a technical product,
That's insane.
it's ready. Done already. It's insane, isn't it? So this is what we're dealing with.
So basically, you've just said there's no reason why people should not be achieving their dreams because
Yeah.
they should just stick it on AI.
Absolutely. You know, if you know how to drive AI, you will benefit the most from this, right? And I've always wondered if I can ask AI, like for example, Claude, build me a token that has built-in tokenomics to be able to make me X amount of money. And I'd love to see what it says.
Still got 11 minutes.
I was just about to say, yeah, that's
Should we
next
do
time. I'll do it now, yeah.
You want to do it?
Well, I might type it in, see if it comes out.
So we just see what it says.
Yeah.
I mean, this is going to be a bit mad.
If it's a flop, we can cut it. It's fine.
yeah, doesn't need to go in. Call it, or should we call it
Mr. X.
Mr. X?
It does scare me though, because like, even though how, like incredible this all is, it is very scary that, AI is going to overtake us all one day, right?
Well,
And we're going to feel so insignificant that, all of the university studies, all of the, building up a knowledge base with people or, your own self-research, education, it's almost like, well, that's always going to be better.
yeah, it's wild.
No, but like, the thing you need is like critical reasoning
Yeah.
and understanding of being
It's
able
missing
to
there.
use it and seeing why it's wrong. Because it's not infallible. I think like there's a common quote at the minute where like AI is not going to replace people. People using AI are going to replace people not using AI.
Yeah.
It's the same as a tool where it's like there was a big scare when like combine harvesters came in and it was like, well, what about all the people that like dig fields? And then we developed other jobs and in a more recent one, like when Adobe and stuff came in and people were like, what about draftsmen that draw everything on a massive piece of paper with pencils and they make these designs and then suddenly we had like CAD design programs that could do all that.
Yeah.
And it was those same people just learned to use those programs. So now, like, we'll all use to learn AI. The weird thing is now it can code. Like, that was a big sort of...
Yeah.
If it can code and it has access to itself. Because there's a thing about general intelligence versus... Like, because at the minute, it's not real intelligence. It's just something that is
It's
made
learned
to
and it's picked
look
up and
intelligent.
yeah.
When really it isn't. Like I said, it knows how to impress you into thinking that it knows everything, but really it's just very quickly accessing databases and putting stuff together. Like creating new stuff is still building the non-urgent transaction app in minutes is fine because it would have just taken someone 8 months, like you said previously.
Yeah.
You still need the idea of
Yeah.
a non-urgent transaction app. So
You know, and this stuff always reminds me of when like calculators first bust onto the scene, and there were teachers that were marching. There's really old pictures of teachers marching with placards saying like "ban the calculator, ban the calculator." But as humans, we adapted, and I see this as another phase that we're going through. We had machines, we had calculators. Now we have artificial intelligence, and what I think this is going to happen is, as from a human perspective, we're making space for us to evolve onto the next thing of whatever we're going to make next. Right? You know, we're clearing that capacity in our minds. We're offloading it, like we did with the calculator, like we did with machines. And
it democratizes it. So now it's not just like if you want, like say 10 years ago, like pre-crypto stuff, if you wanted to make an app, then you had to have money or friends with money to pay developers to build something, and then you would build it, and then you would release it, and then you would make more money because you had the money to pay developers to build the thing you wanted. Whereas now, you could be sitting in your room and be like, I've had an idea for a thing, and vibe code it, and it's finished, and you release it.
Yeah.
It's more about like rewarding people for good ideas than rewarding people for having an alright idea and access to the people that can make it happen. Yeah. Which I think is nice.
Right, I've gone basic.
Yeah.
Let's just see what it says, okay? So I've got a prompt here that says, I want to make a crypto token, and I've done this in the way that someone else might just do it. Yeah. You know, who knows nothing about crypto. So I put, I want to make a crypto token that has built-in fee capturing mechanism to be able to make more money on the site.
This is not financial advice.
This is every 13-year-old typing into their computer.
Right, let's just see what it does. I don't know how this is going to go. Bombs away.
And it's like 13-year-olds typing now instead of just being like boobs.
So it's going. It's done it.
How does the token work?
Let me just see. It will summarize it, but it's written the code for Mr. X token. And I'm looking at you, Mr. X.
I'm ready to launch. Send it to the moon.
I can't wait.
I know a couple 13-year-olds that will sell this online.
So it's done it. That was it. It's done.
Correct.
Right. So it just said, I'm going to create a new Solidity smart contract for your token. And this is what it said. I'll help you create a crypto token with a built-in fee mechanism. This is a common pattern with DeFi tokens, with a percentage of each transaction captured as a fee. So it's written it.
Which blockchain is it on?
I guess we could deploy it on any blockchain that supports smart contracts. So it could be basic, whatever, you know. So let me explain the key features. Fee mechanism: the tokens automatically take a fee, 2% fee on every transaction. Security: it's got all the things that are security in place. Open Zeppelin libraries, ownable. Only the owner can change and collect fees. It's done everything right. Transfer, set fee collector, get the collector, pause, unpause.
That's insane.
And it's just like deploy it, rock and roll. And it says, do you want anything more? At the end.
Cup of tea, please.
Cup of tea, yeah.
Is that just MRX?
MRX, yeah. So
nice.
Yeah, let's follow the developments.
This is not financial advice.
On the podcast, because I guess we're going to continue this journey. Mr. X token.
How many Mr. X coins do you need to access the Kryptonite school videos?
And this is where it all comes together. But yeah, I think that's the end of the episode. We're done. We're done for another for another month. That's episode 4. We had Amber with us. And we had the whole gang. Hello. Yeah. We had the whole gang. It's been amazing. Just so glad that we had all of us here. And we're back at Pirate. We're back at Pirate, but we're going to be somewhere else, hopefully, next week. And it's going to be, hopefully, a brewery or somewhere fun. We're trying to take the studio mobile. So, got any questions? Whack it in the comments.
I feel like I would be a lot more interesting over a beer, but you know.
Me too. I think like and subscribe for more. There's always going to be more. There's always more crypto where that came from.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to say. So, All right. Thanks a lot.
Yes.